Well, hello everybody. Welcome in Get Healthy UTV squad. Or maybe I should say Get Healthy UTV family. Yeah. I'm here with Sam Cam. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
We are here for our monthly Q&A. This is one of my favorite things to do. I love it.
It's so fun. It goes by quick, too.
It goes by too quick. We always say an hour, and then in 1 hour, it's like, shoot, the time passed. So we're going to get right into the questions right away, because boy, are you guys curious about this subject today. If you are new to these Q&As, we try to pick a subject, something that's been on top of mind, been top of mind for like the last month. Or we hear it a lot from people, so we say, hey, it's time to talk about that. But any question is fair game. So if you have something else, you can always ask us. We're so happy to be here with you. Remember, you can watch the old Q&As. We have years and years worth of them. So you can go back and watch them if a subject interests you. But we do come live every month. And so today we're talking about form. Now, it's been, would you say it's been like a year?
It's been about a year, yeah.
Yeah, it's been about a year since we talked about form in terms of form in squats and lunges and push-ups and burpees and deadlifts and why does my shoulder hurt and why does my hip hurt and why is my ankle hurt and all that good information. So you guys have pre-asked a lot of questions. We love Sam Cam. She is, like I said yesterday in my Facebook post, the yin to my yang. She keeps me organized. She will be doing the best she can to keep up with all of these questions today,
yes. Yep.
Both coming in live and pre-asked. So without further ado, Sam, let's just get right into it because we got a lot to talk about today.
All right. I sometimes get a little soreness in my arm and elbow area closest to my body when doing bicep curls. Do you think this is a form issue or I'm using too heavy of a weight issue?
Could be both. See, here's the crazy thing about the human body. We don't know exactly what caused it. Sometimes you have an accident and you go, ooh, that caused that. But a lot of times you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, my elbow hurts today. I don't know why. So we talk a lot about biceps, and I'm going to kind of move over here. Is that okay?
Yeah.
You move a little closer this way. I'll move a little closer this way. Okay, a little wider shot. So when you do your bicep curls, I always talk about not swinging, or I should say all the trainers, talk about not swinging, because by engaging that elbow joint a little bit more free form in space, you're putting a little more pressure on that joint. So by stabilizing that joint, you can go a little heavier. So swinging could be the problem. They call it tennis elbow, this on the inside, and it's, that whole concept of swinging, and that elbow joint is, in space and has to stabilize. It also could be from too heavy too soon. So if you are new and you start to exercise and you start going too heavy, so bottom line is when you start to feel elbow pain, back off a little bit, do some of the rest, ice, that kind of idea. You can get like a Velcro, what would you call that, a wrap?
Like
you can get them at like the drugstore. And what it does is, so here's this tendon. It tightens the tendon and therefore shortens it. So you receive less pain. And then if it's really intense, you go to the physical therapist and they do I think it's called the Graston method on you, and they scrape it, and man, can you feel it. I guess this is I always get confused which one is the tennis elbow, which one's the golf. I won't play either one, golf or tennis.
Speaking of bicep curls, when you're doing bicep curls, should the elbows be right next to your side, like your body behind, in front? Some people have questions about that.
Again, weightlifting is like sculpting a sculpture. If you were making a sculpture from a pottery wheel, you want it to look, three-dimensional, right? Well, the same thing with your body. So there's no one right way. Sometimes you'll see people hold their joint forward. When you hold it forward, again, it's suspended in space. You need to go probably with a lighter weight than you would when you pull it here next to your body. This would be your beginner bicep, really stabilizing that elbow next to your rib cage. You could go behind and go here. That would be fine. But again, you might have to lower your weight when you suspend the joint in space.
Awesome. Let's see. I need alternatives for lunges and squats. Orthopedic surgeon says they are no-go.
Okay, so when those knees go bad, or maybe when those hips go bad, there are alternatives. Now, we do talk about if you're somebody who's just starting with squats or lunges, then you ease into range of motion, right? Where you start with a half squat and you get your knees and hips ready. Motion is lotion. Get them used to that movement, and then you go deeper, deeper, deeper. But if you absolutely can't do any squats or lunges, they are out of your realm. We've got things like, and Sam, I want you to fire up some ideas if you have any. I got to be careful of my microphone. Your glute bridges. Now, I am benefiting all the way through my legs and my glutes. We also have, oh my gosh, we didn't bring our stability ball today, but you put your heels on your stability ball, and then, I can't do this, but you lift here, hold my leg up, Sam.
Here.
No, we can't. We
Do you
won't
want
be
me
able to
to?
do it. No, we won't be able to. All my body weight. But you put those legs up and then you wheel the ball in and you push it back and you wheel it in. That is holy hamstring and your glute. And by the way, core. This might be one of my favorite low body exercises that is no pressure on the knees or the hips. So glute bridges, hamstring roll-ins. You can do leg lifts, laying down, side leg lifts, put a booty band or a figure 8 band around your ankles, and you lift to the side, and you lift to the back, and you do circles, and you balance, and you step side to side where you feel those hamstrings, glutes working. Those are all really good ideas. Do you have any others top of mind?
Those were kind of the big ones that I'm trying to think of what I did for surgery, but yeah, with like bands, doing fire hydrants, kind of those type of things.
Anything on the ground here, you can put a band on. You can do fire hydrants, as you just mentioned. Mule kicks are great.
You know, the other thing too is if you have ankle weights, like 2 pounds on each ankle, if you don't have bands or something like that, that also does the trick with those exact same movements.
Yep.
Information about lunges and squats, like just overall how to do them.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, this
because
could
we're
take a little.
sticklers
We
about,
are sticklers
about squats and lunges, because good form, good results. Poor form can lead to injury. So that's why I want to make sure. Now, nobody's body is perfect. I want to put that out there. Everybody's body is biomechanically different. I mean, I'm just going to point out my faults now. When I stand, my right leg turns to the side. If I want my 2 knees to be aligned, my right foot turns out. Why? Because when I was younger, I had a hip injury and I had this brace on my foot, and my foot just turns to the side. When I turn my foot in, look at my knee. Do you see how it's kind of curved in? That is not comfortable for me. So literally, this happened to me when I was younger. Someone kept saying, turn your toe in, and it was causing major knee pain for me.
Yikes.
So again, the most important thing that you can do is know your own body. So for me, for my 2 knees to be aligned, my right foot is just slightly turned out. That being said, here are some good pointers for squats and lunges that work overall for bodies, but again, you be aware of what's happening in your joints. So when you do a squat, coming from the side, you're going to have an ankle. You know what? Sam Cam. Let's get her going. You're going to do a squat. So go ahead, do a squat, and I'm going to point something out. And I'm going to make her hold it.
I'm like, you're going to make me hold this. Okay, here we go.
Okay, we're going to make her hold it. So notice that she has an angle here that is almost the same angle as from hip to shoulder, ankle to knee. Hip to shoulder, ankle to knee. Her knees are just over the top of her toes. And of course, she is a very low squatter. So go up just a little bit, right there. Okay, most of us would probably be right about there. Angle from the hip to the shoulder, angle from the knee to the ankle. Okay, go ahead. She's like, holy moly.
Holy legs.
Now, the one thing you don't want to do is this. Okay, people feel like they're going in a lower squat by doing this. It's kind of like a half deadlift, and we got to make sure our form is good. But when they go to pick up a weight, they're going like this. Their butt is still in the air. So the one thing we always say, go ahead, one more squat, hold it, is hips below the heart below the head. It goes in alignment, knees over the toes. So there's your squat. All right, so if you are having trouble getting down low, don't do this. Just work towards the elbows, driving towards the knees, and back up. And slowly but surely, you go lower. Yeah, there we go. Now, a lunge is different. A lunge requires more balance. So you're going to start with your feet on railroad tracks. Stay sideways. Yep, that's perfect. Feet are on railroad tracks. And let's take your good foot, Sam. Sam had foot surgery, so she has trouble on one foot.
Yep.
Okay, go into a full lunge. Okay, now, look at her lunge. Knee tracking over the top of the toe. Back knee points towards the floor, back toe, and heel is elevated. This is a perfect lunge. Body completely upright, and she could put a book on her head. That is an awesome lunge, okay? Go ahead and stand up. Some of the problems that people have with lunges. Go ahead into your lunge, leaning forward, like they're leaning too far forward, so get your body upright. Yeah. Half a lunge, or feet too close. So when your feet are too close, yeah, right there. Oh, look at the pressure happening on that knee and on that knee pushing too forward. You got to step back a good 3 feet and go into that lunge. Now, this is a reverse lunge. Thank you, Sam. You're so awesome. Isn't she good? That is a reverse lunge. Now, you can do a forward lunge where you come forward. Some people think that's too much pressure on their knees. If that's too much pressure on your knees, then you stay with the reverse lunges. I always say in class, we've got reverse lunges, behind lunges, We've got cross behinds, we've got reverses, we've got forward, and everybody's body is different. I have some people who say, you know what, I can't do forward lunges. I'm like, okay, do reverse lunges, that's fine. Make sure though that your head is always above your heart is above your hips.
The other thing I want to mention too, when you're doing squats that like I know I've been noticing is when you come up to the top, people squeeze and then your hips come forward. So how do you?
Yeah, keep from arching through your back. So it's like you're pulling through too far. So when you come up, come into what we call neutral, which is where your two hip bones and your pubic bone are in the same plane, which keeps you from arching in the back. So down, neutral, down, neutral. Sometimes momentum throws you forward like that.
Yep. And I definitely, I'm a culprit of this as an instructor. I always say squeeze your glutes, and then when people do that, they almost over squeeze.
Over thrust, yeah.
So just pay attention to even when instructors are cueing. Again, I'm one that does that. So
right.
Just kind of pay attention.
Well, because we are trying to get you to understand that you got to get your brain in your booty, literally, when you're doing squats and lunges, because it is entirely possible to do a squat without squeezing your glutes, or without using your glute muscles. Your glute muscles could be completely turned off when you do a squat, and you come up and you use too much of your low back and your hips. So that's why we always say squeeze those glutes so you can feel them activating.
Let's see, we have a question about, we as trainers love throwing in burpees throughout our workouts, but we have members that highly dislike them. So what are the benefits of a burpee?
So a burpee is a very functional exercise. It is a plank to a squat to standing up, okay? So take it for what it's worth. It's a great functional exercise. It is not for everybody. And do not, I was just gonna put my hands on weights because I like to put my hands on weights when I do burpees. But it is a functional exercise that if it's not good for your body, then it's not good for your body. Don't do it. Coming from plank to squat position is an advanced movement. So here, I guess I'll come this way. Now, I like to put my hands on weights. It just protects my wrists. It is more stress to your wrist to be bent all the way than it is to be neutral this way. But again, there is, one of the things we all have to get used to in fitness is there is no one right way. It just always cracks me up when people go, you're not supposed to put your hands on, and I'm like, there's no one perfect way. Do what works for your body. But you're gonna come from a plank position, so your hips are low, your spine is in one long linear line, and you're gonna come to a squat. Now you could walk it in, you can jump it in, right there. So either one works, but you have to see what works for your body. But look at what I'm doing. I'm still keeping my butt, my hips below my heart. And that's the important thing. I see people do this in a burpee a lot. They come in, their hips are up, and now they're pulling all the way through their back to stand up. So what you want to start working on is come in, drive up through your glutes. I am squeezing my glutes to stand. You can come up and reach overhead. You can come up and jump overhead. The basic burpee is a 4-count move. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you can add a push-up. You can add a jumping jack. You can add some punches. You can play around with burpees and we make them fun. But that being said, it is a functional move. Now, when I'm teaching and saying, okay, we're gonna do burpees and burpees aren't for you, I always tell people, do a squat and a reach, or do a squat and a jump. Modify. There's no shame in the modified game. We talk about it all the time.
Yep, absolutely. It doesn't matter age, anything. I mean, if you have an injury, do what works best for your body. It's not worth pushing to something that doesn't feel good.
And when you had your surgery, you did a lot of modifying.
I still am doing modifications. Yeah. I think I'll be doing them for another year. So just do what works best for your body. You don't have to move as fast as anyone else. You don't always have to do the most advanced option, right? Choose what works best for you at that point in time.
Right, and my burpees are often slower than other people's, but I'm thinking about my forearm. And burpees feel good to me once I got control of my back pain. Burpees feel really like I like them. They're, a great way to get a plank to a squat and get up. But again, ease into it and use good form. Another way to practice burpees, I know a lot of you have a step platform at home, so you can put your hands on the step platform, and we do have one over there. Too bad we didn't bring it over here, but that's okay. When you put your hands on the step platform, you're elevated, right? Yep. So you're not so far down to the ground, and it's a little easier to jump your feet in and stand up. So using your step as a tool is a great thing.
Chris, can you talk about the purpose of moving like faster, slower? Is there a benefit to moving faster? What do you think about the pace?
So we always say form first, speed second, right?
Yep.
We always talk about form first, speed second, because you lose some of your form if you're moving too fast and you don't understand what you're doing, or if your range of motion gets shortened. But sometimes you want to shorten your range of motion, so it's tricky. Like if you're doing a cardio move, I can, go quick feet. Quick feet is going to get my heart rate up because I'm moving quickly, but a deep lunge is going to be more intense on my legs, right? So how do you pick the exercise? It depends on what the instructor has planned for that day or what you yourself are doing on your own. But quickness, okay, so there's three ways to get your heart rate up. One of them is range of motion, a deep range of motion. That's going to get my heart rate up higher than this, right? And recruit more muscle. The second way is arms above the heart. So we always talk about, if I'm jogging, that's one thing. Now if I start putting my hands overhead, my heart rate is going to go up higher. And the third way to get your heart rate up is speed. So I can go like this, or I can go like this. My heart rate's going to eventually get higher from speed. So that we use speed for cardio, we use speed for quickness, for agility, for mind-body connection. I always talk to my peers in my age group,
not me,
50 and above, that fast feet, all of a sudden, it just gets hard to do. And you have to teach your brain to go faster, and it's just good from an agility standpoint. So we use speed for those reasons. But when it comes to strength, I typically will cue, I hear Sam cue, I hear the other GHUTV trainers cue, slow it down. Go for go for form before you go for speed. Now, if this feels good, and I know, okay, I'm going to do this for 30 seconds, and I've mastered the range of motion, so now I'm going to pick up my speed with good form because I know I can, then I will. If I'm I'm going to go with 15-pound weights, and I want to just slow it down a little bit so that I make sure I master the form and don't hurt my joints, then you do. So see, there's so many variables.
There are.
People want black and white, and I get it because I am so type A. I am it's either here or it's there.
Yep.
But I've learned with fitness to be a little more, play around in that gray area.
Well, and you've always said, and I think we've heard other people say, if you don't use it, you lose it. So
Right.
when she talks about range of motion, it's super important to say, okay, slow it down, really go for the depth, and then add on that speed, because if you don't use it, you'll lose it, right?
And I think for those of you who are at home and you see the instructor moving faster than you, don't worry about it. Move slower. It doesn't matter if the instructor does 10 reps and you do 7 reps. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we talk about this all the time, it is about consistency. It's not what you do once. It's what you do every day, every week, every month, every year. You will see changes, but go with what works for your body.
We have members saying that they can't do the full body roll-ups from laying down to sitting up all the way, but we don't have modifications. So what's the modification for that one?
Okay, do you want to go grab a long band
Sure.
while I'm talking about it? So for a full body roll-up, it is a basic Pilates exercise that you learn in Mat Pilates. If any of you are gold members, if you do Mat Pilates 1, 2, or 3, we probably are doing full body roll-ups. It's an exercise, thank you so much, that you learn right away. So when you are coming from the ground, right here, and those arms come up to the sky, and now I'm going to peel off an imaginary piece of Velcro. So my chin goes to my chest, my belly comes in towards my spine. A lot of people get stuck right about here, and they're like, I can't get up, right? And so the natural inclination is to lift your leg and use your hip flexors. We are strong in our hip flexors because of all the movements we do every day where we lift our knee up, walking, running, sitting, standing, all of those things. So when your abs can't do it for you, you pick your feet up to do that. Now, some of you might be nodding your head at home and going, I can't even do that. I can't even get up at all. So there are a couple modifications. One would be to use a band. The stronger the band, the easier it's going to be. So use a heavier band. Hold those handles, get it under your shoes. Please make sure it does not slip off your shoes. Something so interesting to me is in the industry of shoes today, they're all flat on the bottom. They're not notched.
Yep.
Running shoes are sometimes notched, but because they're flat, the band can fly off and hit you in the face, and that can be very dangerous. So make sure it is connected on your shoe. What you're going to do is keep your hands here, and when I get right about here, I use the band to pull me up. I love it, and then I roll back down. Another option would be to place your feet under a bed under a couch. Would you mind just standing on holding on to my feet?
Yep.
Thank you, Sam. So recruit one of your kids or somebody to hold your feet down. This is going to be even more assistance. So now there's no way I can use my legs, and I have to use my abs. You can also get right about here when you curl those shoulder blades up and crawl your way up, right? You could do that. So there are quite a few different options. Good?
Awesome. Yep.
Okay.
Continuing on with like the core, what do you think about the age-old controversy surrounding crunches for abs? Some say they are more harmful than they are helpful for strengthening the abs. So
Okay, the reason they're more harmful is poor form. Pretty much everything becomes about poor form. Now quickly, let's just talk about abdominals. So you have this long muscle. It's called the Rectus Abdominis. No, it's not. Yes, it is.
I was like, I think it is.
Oh my God, I'm just losing my mind today. This is called the Rectus Abdominis, and it's like above, it's above the belly button. It's like that place where someone might hit you in the stomach and you hit, and that's that six-pack up high. Most people as we get older don't care so much about that as we do about down here. This is your transverse abdominis, also known as the TVA, that goes around your body like a belt. And so when you learn to tighten your low abs, it pulls in and protects you. It holds your organs in and protects your low back. And then you have what we call our obliques. So that's your internal and external obliques. Those are your twisting muscles that allow your body to freely twist. Okay, so you have all three of those muscles. Now, when you are doing a crunch, it is a lot of rectus abdominis. So that's why sometimes, when they're talking about fitness for older people, we're like, hey, we don't really care about this anymore. We care more about this. So that's sometimes why people say that. The other thing is just poor form, because you do use your low abs also. But typically when people are doing a sit-up, did they say sit-up or crunch?
They just said abs in general. So.
Okay, I'm going to show the difference between a sit-up and a crunch.
There you go.
So a sit-up is a full sit-up where you come all the way up and all the way down. Now, notice I have my knees slightly bent because that gives me a little help, but it's a lot of work. And what a lot of people end up doing is pulling with their neck. So you never want to be in this position where you're using your scalenes and your neck,
yep.
Or they're pulling with their elbows to try to get up, where you want the work to be right there. Okay, so how do you then get better at crunches? First of all, you can use your arms as counterbalance, just like we did in the full body roll-up, to help you up. It's kind of similar to a full body roll-up. It's just not as methodical. Like when you do a full body roll-up, you're really thinking through the spine, bringing each vertebrae up at a time. Now, crunch only brings the shoulder blades up. So crunch is going to be this. That's your crunch right there. This is your sit-up right there, all the way up. A crunch basically takes your rib cage and brings it closer to your hip bones. And what it does is it peels that mid-back up off the ground. And again, don't use your neck. If you find yourself doing this or pulling, you want to really imagine that work in the top back, upper back. And you and I, did we do a tutorial video on that? We did something on neck pain, or
yes, we did. I'm trying to think what that was, though.
I feel like it was neck pain.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Because a lot of people will get bad neck pain when they're working their abs,
yes, yep.
Because they're spending more time right here on the front of their neck than they are on the back of their shoulder blades.
Absolutely. We have somebody saying that she noticed whenever she does a kickboxing workout that her back hurts. She treats back pain every day like you do, so, your ball exercise, all that. But does kickboxing tend to aggravate the back?
You and I talk about this too. Kickboxing is very back-centric. We talk about this, right? You notice it, like you feel in your back.
Like when I don't do it for a few weeks, I'm like, oh my gosh, my back is so sore. In a good way. It can be a not good way, again, if you're not doing the right form.
Right, but it is very back-intensic, where people
Yep.
think it's all front of the body or it's here. And we always, in the beginning of every kickboxing class, I talk to you about not going like this and throwing from the elbow, which is another way you can get elbow pain,
Yep.
but actually bringing your power from the back of your body. So in every punch that you throw, it literally starts from the ground up. You bring it up the back of your body and through. And I feel it. Let's get you coming over here, and we'll get you to hold a punch. So punch, it drives all the way up the back of her body, and I can see her back muscles engaged. They're right there. And that's why we also say, go ahead and just keep throwing a punch. That's why we always say lean forward in the hip flexors, right? Because you're not going to hit a punching bag like this. You have no power. But look at her. She could really hit something with her body weight going forward. So it is very back intensive. So awesome. Thanks, Sam. So now the other thing is to not hurt your low back. So your abdominals need to be connected. This is martial arts in a sense. So you can't just have your abs hanging out. You got to pull those abs in, and then you're working that upper back. And I always say the power is coming from here, and this is just the delivery system. So it is very labor intensive in the back. You have to, really work your way up into it.
Yeah, I think that's one thing. I mean, somebody came up to me in your class a few weeks ago and was like, wow. And it's because like you do have to focus on it, and that's where I get my aggression out. But you have to stay forward. And you always talk about too, like feel even your obliques. Like this cannot arch at all. You have to keep rib cage closed. So it is like it's a total body workout, definitely cardio, but the core and the upper back is
So that's a really good point. You don't want to be arching. You want to, I always say, knit your rib cage together. I always say, think like your rib cage is a pair of tennis shoes and you're lacing it up tight. So you're keeping those ribs together. But when I'm punching right here, I can feel all of these side body muscles working all the way up my back. And it's just so empowering. That's why we love it.
Totally. If you have a bad day, throw a kickboxing workout on because it is amazing. Okay, any modifications for deadlifts, low back pain throughout the deadlift?
Okay, let's go into deadlifts. They're quite different than a squat. I'm going to have Sam be our model again. You're such a good model, Sam.
I try.
Okay, so let's do the squat one more time just to show them the squat. So in a squat, notice she has an angle from ankle to knee that matches her angle from hip to shoulder, and not quite that deep. She's such a deep squatter. She's a dancer. So I'm like, most people can't do that. But look at that angle right there. Okay, now we're going to go into a deadlift. So in a deadlift, your knee is not, go squat one more time. Her knee came right to in front of the shoe, right there. In a deadlift, her knee is going to stay perpendicular over the ankle. And she's slightly softening the knees because you don't want to tug too hard on the hamstrings, but she's got a nice long spine. And it looks like you're arching your back only because she's got a big microphone here. So her back is nice and flat right here, and then she hinges up. So it is a hip hinge. It is a hip hinge over, soften knees. Knees are above the ankles. They're not forward. And then you pull back up through the back side of the body. So do it again. Hold it. It's a nice long spine. And then pull up through the backside. Awesome. Now here's another cue. Thank you so much, Sam. Here's another cue for you. Think like you put a ruler across your two shoulders here, because what happens with deadlifts is a lot of people do this. They round before they go down. So instead of rounding to go down, I'm going to glue that ruler, imaginary ruler, across my chest. And then when I go down, I'm keeping my back long, and oh my goodness, and I pull up and feel it through your hamstring and glutes. They're called RDLs, they're called good mornings, they're called deadlifts, but they're all about pulling on that backside. Sometimes we add a pair of weights and we row. Just be really conscious of not overarching the low back, not rounding through the shoulders, and that the lower body positioning is quite different than a squat. It's more of a hip hinge, and a squat is a knee hinge with the hip hinge.
And it's very similar to squats when everyone's range of motion is different. So like, I was a dancer, so my hamstrings are a little bit more bendy than most. So if you were to watch me or be in class next to me, my range of motion is going to look very different. So watch that you're not going too far. I feel like a lot of people try to go to the ground with the weights, and for most people, that's going to be way too far.
That is, I'm so glad she mentioned that, because I will see this. People, good form, good form, good form, bad form. It's like they want their weights to touch the ground. Don't worry about it. When I started doing deadlifts and I was coming back from my back hurting me about 8 years ago, I used to deadlift to here and back. That's it, just so that I could get that low back, train my abs tight, and then I started going down a little bit lower. But in order for me to touch the ground in a deadlift, I would have to round through my front, and then you lose the deadlift. So that's thank you, that's an awesome tip.
Can you go over how to cue proper form on a kettlebell swing?
kettlebell swing is super similar to a deadlift. So I'm so glad we just talked about that. Do we have a kettlebell over there? I don't think we do. We don't.
I don't think so.
Okay, I'm going to use my weight as a kettlebell. So the bell has a handle, a horn, as we call it at the top, and the weight swings separately, which just makes it a little bit different. There's a little bit more element of balance going on, some wrist action going on with a kettlebell. But here's a good tip for a kettlebell swing, friends. This is important. When you are doing a kettlebell swing, never should the kettlebell be down. Let's see if we can get the camera down a little lower. Never should the kettlebell be down below your knees. Now I'm basically deadlifting or squatting. A kettlebell, for lack of better words, is in your crotch. Sorry, that's what it is.
It's the best way to describe it.
So it's a hip hinge. You basically bring the kettlebell between your, between your legs at the crotch level, and then you hip hinge, and so it's very similar to the deadlift, where your knee is staying over the ankle, your lower leg is perpendicular to the floor. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is you're hip hinging like you do in a deadlift, but you're probably not as deep as a deadlift, because with a deadlift, you're taking your time, you're coming down, and you're coming up. With a kettlebell swing, it's a lot of hip thrusting. It's a lot of hip action. Don't arch that low back. Abs are tight. Squeeze through those glutes. It's like you're squeezing a quarter in your glutes, and the kettlebell is swinging with momentum. So there we go.
Awesome.
So we hit all the good lower body exercises. I'm glad.
We did. We do actually have one more question about the lower body. Squats, sumo squats, and plie squats. What are the differences in form?
Okay, squats. Squats can be, again, there's no right way. Squats can be narrow. So right here, you're still thinking about that form with toes facing forward, but like I said, my right foot literally just always turns a little bit out, and that's okay, because that's the way my knee joint aligns properly. So don't beat yourself up. But for most regular squats, your toes are going to be facing fairly forward, and you're here, okay? You can go narrow. You can go a nice wide squat. A wider squat is, you're going to feel it a little bit differently. You can step side to side in your squats, so that's your basic squat. Your plie is going to turn your heels in, toes out with a wider stance. Okay, so I guess we'll go to a sumo squat before we go to the plie. A sumo squat turns the heels in, toes out. So heels in, toes out, probably not quite as wide as a plie, no. But again, it's about the length of your legs and your body mechanics. And you do push your butt back into a squat. So it's just turned out toes in a squat. So I'm turning into a squat. Okay, so there's squat, there's sumo squat. Now plie. Heels in, toes out. Feet are going to be a little farther apart, and here's the difference maker. I'm going to turn sideways so you can see. It is like I'm taking my back down a wall. So instead of pushing back like you do in a squat slightly, you're going to slide down that wall and get your knees out over the toes and slide back up. So my back is against a wall. Inner thigh right there. Ballet dancers have strong inner thighs and outer thighs for a reason. There's your plie. Those are so hard for people like me who have tight hips, and I'm not a dancer. For Sam, you could plie all day long.
Could plie all day. Yep.
So that's the difference.
Awesome. We have quite a few people asking this question. You talk a lot about imbalances. People are working on severe imbalances from right to left, weaker on one side than the other. Any suggestion when working out when you notice like your right side taking over? Is it okay to use like different weights, one weight over the other? What should you do there?
Well, if you've been injured, like let's say you just had shoulder surgery and you're working your way up, but you can go heavier with this arm than you can that arm, no problem, do that. But if it's just an imbalance, meaning you're not quite as strong on your left side or right side or whatever it might be, use the same weights, but just go slower. And if one side fatigues, take a break and, then get back into it. Imbalances are really, really common, especially like, for instance, if you've ever had an injury. I injured my left hamstring. So this is really weird to me. I injured my left hamstring, but my left leg has better balance than my right leg. Now, it could be just because I have this weird thing with my right leg where my toe turns out a little bit. I don't know. That might be the main reason, but I balance better. the other reason why my balance is probably better on my left side is because I've been teaching group fitness for 30 years and my left leg is my right leg. I do everything with this leg first so that you guys are on your right leg. So my right leg tends to be just weaker in terms of balance. So I really love, like today, I already did this today. So I was like this, and then I came down into a single leg squat and walked all the way out into a plank. And then I came back and stood up. That's hard. I can do it on that leg a lot better than I can do it on this leg. This leg wobbles. And part of it is my dominance of this leg, and part of it is that my toe turns slightly out. So practicing on both sides is so important. And strengthening your arm on one side versus the other side, it's important to do.
It's important. And you were talking about fatigue. So say you're doing these on both and you're feeling like you can do one and then the other to just transition from one side to the next so that you're not, feeling like you're taking a break every single time. So that is also a really good option as well.
That's an option too.
We have people asking, they find that HIIT workouts burn more calories versus straight up strength training. Is calorie a driver on like what to look for from working out to lose weight?
Well, see, again, this is so gray. It is not exactly black and white.
Yeah.
And I know when you want rules for things so that it's easier, like I want to lose weight, so give me the rules. It's just not that simple. So the thing about doing strength and cardio together, or a HIIT class where your repetition is high and you're putting forth effort so your heart rate's getting higher, is you do burn more calories. And burning more calories at the end of the day is a good thing, especially when you get older and you tend to have a more sedentary lifestyle. I always tell this story about how we had this couch in my house. It was a brown couch when my kids were little. And 10 years had passed. And my kids said to me, "Mom, you've never sat on this couch." And I'm like, "Yes, I have." And they're like, no, we've never seen you sit on the couch. And I'm like, "You're kidding." And then I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, I never sit on the couch. I never sit down. Now, my couch is cream. It's not brown, but I sit on it every day for hours.
Yep.
At night, I'm not busy anymore chasing kids. So your life changes. So for me at my age, burning calories matters to me because calories in, calories out keeps your weight in check as we're getting older and we're hitting those menopausal years and our lives are slowing down and we're not burning as many calories throughout the day from just non-exercise movement, right? Just moving around. So that's one thing. Second thing is it's a little more euphoric for me. I feel very accomplished. Mm-hmm. It's hard. And when I've got my heart rate up and I'm sweating and I can see the results and I feel my muscles have worked, I just feel really accomplished. Now, that being said, there is nothing wrong with strength training on its own, and it's super, I shouldn't even say it that way because it's super beneficial.
Yep.
Muscle is the secret to metabolism. You don't want to only do cardio. Because when you get older, if you aren't doing strength training, you are missing the boat. Strength training is the key to metabolism. It burns more calories at a resting heart rate. It makes you look stronger, feel stronger, do more things in your daily life. You feel more motivated because your body is more capable. It's just a plethora of amazing benefits. But that being said, there's no one right way to train. Here's the thing. When you do like split days, which we have been very popular, we have 2 sets of split days. Yep. So you train legs, then arms, then back, then biceps, triceps. Sorry, I got out of the shot. Right there. I just walked off the camera. What's great about that is, first of all, you're going to be very focused and maybe do a little heavier weightlifting on that particular muscle group. Secondly, you don't necessarily have to take a day off because you're giving adequate recovery to those muscle groups throughout the days. And so it's a great way to train. A couple of disadvantages might be that if you get foiled and you skip leg day for some reason, now you're a day behind, and then you got to catch up on your arms and you got to catch up on your back. So a total body workout just became a favorite for us because it's so efficient. You're using all the muscle groups and you're getting your heart rate up with things like intervals and circuits. The con, though, is overtraining. It is very easy to overtrain when you are doing total body workouts all the time. The muscle groups never get a chance to rest. So that's why in our calendars, we always put like 2 rest days in there, at least a couple of times, a couple weeks. We encourage you to take a day off or skip a day if you're feeling like your body needs it, because that is the reality. And it's smart to do, right?
Yep.
So.
Let's see. In kicking movements, I'm assuming they're asking for kickboxing. Do the legs go straight up or does the knee come up first and then kick out?
So it's called a chamber, and that's a really good question. So if you're a dancer, you're doing kick line kicks. I don't even know how to do a kick line kick because I wasn't on the kick line, which is a straight leg. Yep. But in typical athletic moves or kickboxing, it's what we call a chamber. So you chamber, extend, recoil, and back. So I liken it to a jump squat without the impact. So I bend my knees, I jump, and I land. That's a jump squat. Now a kick. I boom and land. We call them, I always remind you, it's a push kick because you're pushing through your core, pushing through your glute. Don't lose your balance. So, okay, going a little faster. Boom, boom. So I really feel it. You're flexing your foot. You're pushing through your heel. Same thing with a back kick. Push, push. So you're basically doing a jump squat without the impact of landing on the ground.
Absolutely. Let's talk about a few of the upper body movements. So Renegade Rows hurt people's wrists when they're holding on to weights. Any way to strengthen this movement during Renegade Rows?
So for me, I like better holding on to the
I do
weights
too.
because when I flex my wrist on the ground, that's a more flexion in the wrist and it can be harder on your wrist. But if you have weaker wrists, which is pretty normal, and also if you've had any surgeries, pretty common. I talked to a lady today, said I had some pins and a plate in my wrist. That's going to change things. You can buy a wrist band that, and I should maybe call it more like a wrist, what would you call it? Not a sleeve. You can get a compression sleeve. So a compression sleeve is going to help and eliminate some of those aches and pains. You can also get something that's more like a brace.
Yep.
And again, at your local drugstore, you can sometimes get those braces and they just keep it in neutral position for you, take some of the pressure off those little ligaments and tendons. That's one thing. The other thing you can do is elevate. So this is all the way down to the floor. So all my body weight is pushing into my wrists. Whereas if I had my step platform here and I had my hands up on the step, it's a little less body weight going into those wrists. So I always tell people, take it up on the platform if your wrists are bothering you. The other thing is putting your knees down. So to me, whether you put your hands up on the platform and keep your legs up or put your knees down and keep your hands down here, it's kind of similar in my mind. So again, and you're just trying to stay neutral in that wrist, but yeah, you have to work up to it and strengthen them.
Chris, can you talk about where you're supposed to be rowing for the Renegade Row?
Yep.
Is it to the shoulder, to the hip, to...
So what you don't want to happen with your neck in most instances is this, using too much of your trapezius, which is, I don't have a ponytail holder today, right here. These are your traps, the back of your neck. Now, you might see guys in the gym doing shoulder shrugs because they want a stronger, bigger neck, which is going to define their shoulders. Most women, I have yet to meet a woman who says, I really would love a thick neck.
Nope.
So, that shoulder shrugs. Now, of course, having strong shoulders, but not adding extra shoulder shrugs. So we want to pull that row into our back. Make sure it's not pulling up into our shoulder joint, but pulling into our back. So in a Renegade Row, your row, and I always tell people, take your feet wide so your base is wider. When your base is narrow, it's harder to hold your balance. So a nice wide base and row past your hip. Row past your hip. Now when I row, I feel it in those back muscles. Makes a big difference. Why are my this is the second time my shoes have untied today. I don't get it.
And a good thing to do too is if you are feeling your hips kind of swaying side to side in a Renegade Row, drop to your knees. We always talk about drop to your knees, hips come forward, and focus on the upper back movement because that is essentially what we're doing. The plank is kind of an advanced option for that move.
So either hands up on a platform or knees down to the ground.
Yep. Somebody is saying that they have a lack of shoulder flexibility as they do overhead tricep extensions. Are bent over tricep kickbacks the same movement or what's the difference?
Yeah, so you have 3 heads of the tricep, hence the word tricep. You have a long head of the tricep, which is back here. You have a shorter head of the tricep, kind of that medium one right there. And then there's a little head in there that isn't necessarily one that you isolate. So this is going to be more of the short head of the tricep. This is going to be more of the longer head, but you should do both movements. And if you're doing a well-rounded tricep workout where you're getting some push-ups in, maybe some skull crushers, some press downs, overheads, it's all going to be good. So don't get too hung up on it. Shoulder impingement could be from a shoulder injury, could be from weak shoulders. There's a lot of different reasons why your shoulder might hurt. I have a little issue going on in my left shoulder on my AC joint right here at the top. So lifting this arm all the way up, I feel a little impingement, which is crazy because I typically don't. And so you will notice those things. And so whenever you feel what we call an acute pain, acute injury, which is something that's only been bugging you for a couple days, a week, rest is often a good idea. Massage, ice if you need it, back off a little bit, let that joint or that muscle heal. If it's chronic, meaning it's been more than, they typically say it's been more than even, sometimes they say a month, but like 3 months or more where that same thing has been bugging you, that would be chronic, and that might be something you want to see a doctor about.
Absolutely. Plow pose. So there's quite a few people that know how to do plow pose, but they find it hard to breathe during that movement. Any tips on breathing during that?
It's actually a pose that deals with digestion. It works on your digestive system, which is why often, like with intense yoga classes, they say don't eat before it because you don't want to have a lot of food in your stomach when you're twisting all up in crazy spots. Plow pose is advanced. We'll see. I'm not necessarily going to be able to do a full plow pose right now because I'm definitely not warmed up in the hamstrings and in my back. I know you're super flexible. You want to do it? She looked at me with those eyes like she could do plow pose cold.
I mean, I can do it if you want me to.
Yeah, you do it. Because my legs will be bent, no doubt. Which is fine, by the way, so we'll show that. So plow pose, you lay down on the ground. It's an advanced exercise. It's called an inversion, and we do it typically at the end of a yoga class. I've never seen, and you should not, have a plow pose at the beginning of a yoga class. No. It is after your back, your hips, your hamstrings are all warmed up. Now, there's kind of a couple ways to get into plow pose. So, and yes, it is a little harder to breathe because you're literally crunching all this up. And it depends on how flexible your back is. If you can kind of go up and over, you can open up that area. If you're crunching it all up, it's harder. So first thing I'm gonna have you do is lift your feet into tabletop. Okay, so there's where we start. Now we're gonna lift your butt into the air and put your knees on either side of your temples. Right there. That's called candle pose. She's got bent legs and her tailbone is in the air. Now for a lot of us, I'm just gonna move you a little bit. For a lot of us, we're like right there. We can't get our butt all the way up in the air. This is so much strength in that thoracic spine, that mid back up here, and you're gonna feel it in your low back. Now, plow pose extends the legs all the way over. There is no possible way I could do that without warming up my hamstrings. You got long hamstrings. And it's beautiful, right? And yes, she's all crunched up right in here. So, but because she can lift so high in her thoracic spine, she's not crunching through here. The biggest problem is people who don't have flexibility in that mid back. So let's do it one more time, but I'm not gonna let you come up as high. Go ahead, roll down. So if you were to come up and stop right about there and bend your knees. Okay, she's too flexible. So if you can't get that mid back off the ground, you're gonna feel very crunched in your abs. Yep. That makes sense. She can't breathe. Like, what? That's good enough, that's good enough. So you get the point. So it's really the strength of that thoracic spine. Can you come over here? Let's just show the spine one more time. This is so important, you guys. So you have, yep, we'll go this way. You have 7 vertebrae in the back of your neck. They're called C1 through C7. This is your cervical spine. So much happens in C1 through C7. It is all your nerves, all your mobility, everything in the back of that neck. So you got to keep your neck not only strong, but also flexible right there. So that's C1 through C7. T1 through T12, that's your thoracic 1 through 12. That is your mid-back. And as we get older, people lose strength right here, which is why I always talk about, like, pull your shoulders back, because when you get that stronger back, those rows help you. Yeah, when you're typing on a computer all day and you're like this. So we're going to get nice and strong here. And then you have L1 through L5. That's your lumbar that connects to your sacrum right here. Those are probably the most abused of the vertebrae, and they take the most brunt of your body weight on there. But your spine is freaking unbelievable. It holds all of your nerves and all of your movement capability in your spine, as well as you need that strength for posture and to eliminate pain. So, you know, I just get totally pumped up about like Pilates and things because it does help you strengthen every spot of your spine.
Yes. Push-ups, huge topic. Why are they so hard? How can you work up to them all the things.
Okay, so push-ups they're hard. They're a body weight exercise where you're putting all your body weight in and you want to eliminate too much shoulder stress. That's a really big deal. So if you feel like you're focusing too much on your shoulders, because it should be primarily pectorals, those are your chest muscles, and then tricep are the helper muscles and shoulders, but we want to keep it out of our shoulders as much as we can because as we get older, shoulders have a lot more problems. So let's talk about it. By the way, if you've had a shoulder surgery or have a shoulder impingement and there's no way you should be doing push-ups, flip over on your back and do chest presses. It's like an upside down push-up, and you're still with weights, you're gonna activate those pectorals. So to start a push-up, the best place to start is on a wall. You're gonna come to any wall, and I can't turn the wall sideways for you, sorry. But you're right here, and you're gonna press forward and back. You're allowing your body weight to come into the wall and back, into the wall and back. So you're moving through those pectoral muscles right there. Once you master the wall push-up, you go to a push-up on a chair or a table. You could go on a couch or something, but if it's too mushy, it's gonna make it really harder. So you want maybe a stable or a more firm chair, and you're gonna do your push-up into the chair, where you bring your body down and you push into the chair. Now, we're slowly but surely putting more body weight into the movement. Then you're gonna come down. I love the step platform for push-ups. When my shoulders are bothering me, I always pull out my step platform and use it. And I never hesitate to do that. My left shoulder has been giving me a lot of, for like 2 years, my right shoulder gave me trouble, and now my right shoulder's perfect, and now my left shoulder gives me trouble. So, you know, it's just a reality for so many of us. But when you do your push-up now, and you've graduated from your step platform, from your wall to your chair to your step to the floor, you can put your hands on the floor or on weights. I personally like my hands on the weights because I like to just keep my wrists neutral. But again, that's up to you. I'm going to show it to you with my hands on the floor. So first floor option is butt in the air. Elbows go behind you. This is not a good push-up. If your arms are making goalposts, that is not a good push-up. You should have your arms, if you could fit a grapefruit under your armpit, that is not good. You should barely be able to fit an orange under your armpit, not even. Your elbows should be in tight, pointing back. Therefore, you're not doing this, but you're using more triceps. So first push-up, butt in the air, right here. The key is range of motion. So this is not a push-up, you guys. This is not a push-up. Okay, a push-up involves bringing that chest to the floor, elbows go back, bring it back up. There's your push-up with your butt in the air. It's still difficult. Now, next, you would pull your knees forward, and now you're in alignment in your spine, elbows point towards the back. But it's getting that chest to the floor. We say it all the time in our workouts, right, Sam?
We do.
And then here's on your toes. Elbows point back, push up. Elbows point back, push up. Now, it's so much harder for a lot of us to use more tricep than shoulder. In many instances, for women especially, and I don't know what it is about our bodies, we just tend to weaken in our triceps as we get older if we're not working on it. And I see so many women, they just don't have the strength in their triceps, so they cave into their shoulders, and then maybe their back arches and so forth. So just don't get upset. Work towards stronger triceps, pectorals and triceps, and just keep working on it. And just for the record, push-ups are freaking hard. I find them hard.
I was gonna say, I feel like it's one of those movements where it never actually gets easier because you do get stronger and you can stay on your toes for a little bit longer, but I don't think I've ever done a workout where it's all on my toes, ever. Like it's
come down.
You have to come down, you have to find a modification so the form doesn't go away. So they're hard, and don't ever be afraid to find different options because they're not easy at all.
Right.
Speaking of shoulder injuries, we have a member saying that she cannot do shoulder presses without engaging her neck. So is there another movement that can be substituted for shoulder press?
So I don't know if you have some sort of a past injury or surgery or some reason why that's happening, but if it's literally out of weakness, start with just simple movements, nothing in your hands. Raise it overhead, get that range of motion. Motion is lotion, range of motion you have to work on. So just work on range of motion here. You can take a resistance band and you can hold on to it and you can raise up and down and up and down. So you're just getting a tiny bit of resistance. You could also put something up in the door and pull it and release it and pull it. A band. The thing about resistance bands is you're getting resistance on the way up and the way down. So it's a good therapy tool. Then take a lightweight and start working towards more strength. I'm imagining that what your problem is strength. If it is a structural problem from a surgery or a injury, then it's probably going to need some sort of physical therapy type things. And often, you know, even when you're, like you see a lot of this. Do you mind holding on to that? Like where you do rotator cuff stuff right here, and then you do lift right here. But the thing about the resistance band is it gives you just that little bit of resistance for you to work on lubricating the joint and range of motion.
Yep. We have some people talking about the push-ups again. Just if you just joined, she did talk about the wall push-up and going down on steps. So just make sure you rewind a little bit because she did go from push-up to the wall all the way down to the ground. So there are a ton of options, and wall push-ups are a great place to start, which is where she started.
Wall and chair push-ups. There is no shame in a chair push-up or a step platform
push-up. Or a table even, like your countertop. Any of those options. So
they're hard.
Yes, they are very hard. Your favorite, why am I blanking? Reverse tabletop. Oh. People are having issues having their fingertips facing the right way. Do you have any tips on that?
Okay, again, black or white, like it's gray. It doesn't, you don't have to have your fingertips facing it. When you do have your fingertips facing in, it just changes the angle. You can definitely have your fingertips facing out, but like it's harder to get that range of motion up through the chest and the shoulder. When my fingertips are down here, I can't get past here. It would rip my shoulder off. So the reason we turn our fingertips in is so that we can open a little more through that front shoulder. I guess if I flipped it here, I can do that. You can probably do it, Sam.
It's a very different sensation, though, I feel like.
We'll have you try it. But this pushes up through my shoulders and chest, and reverse tabletop is about opening through the front of your body. Yep. Another good opening through the front of your body exercise is coming to a corner. I don't know. Let's see. Terry on the camera, I don't know if you can follow me over here. Can you? Let's see. There we go. I love it. Okay, so you come into a wall in your house or wherever you have a wall like this, and you press into it. And when I press into this, it's such a good stretch. I can feel it all the way through my pectorals. So you do that in a corner. That is a great, great stretch. Let's say you do tabletop. See how your fingertips.
The opposite way?
Yeah. Because her being a dancer, her joints go in every direction.
Which is not always the best thing.
Yeah, okay. How does that feel?
Fine? I feel it more in my back, actually, my upper back.
Okay, now flip your hands around.
Now I feel it in my chest.
Yeah, so that's why we cue reverse tabletop like that, because it's healthier, if you will, for the shoulder. But if you are somebody who's uber flexible like her, you can do either one.
Yeah, depends on what you're looking for, I guess.
Yeah.
Speaking of stretching, suggestions on how many days yoga stretching should be incorporated in with your daily workouts?
Well, again, it's all a gray area. It's what you like. It's your personality. It's what your goals are. It's what you have time for. Some people love yoga so much and they do it twice a week, 3 times a week, 4 times. I mean, I know people who do, my daughter does it 4 times a week at least. Me, I'm lucky if I get one good one in a week, and I like to. Like, that is my goal. I just don't always get to it because my personality is such that I'd rather do something else a little more intense. However, when I do teach a yoga class, teaching yoga classes I love. I just love teaching. But taking a yoga class is a little harder for me to bring myself there to that quiet space. Because when I'm teaching, I'm thinking the whole time to try to, So I guess this would be a personality thing I need to work on. But again, it's what's good for you. And sometimes for me, what I like yoga so much for both my warm-up and my cool-down. Yeah. So over the years, I have switched a little bit about the way I teach, and I know you have too. I put yoga poses in my warm-up, and I put yoga poses in my cool-down because they are so worthy in both positions.
Yeah.
They warm up the joints, and they also stretch out the muscles at the end. So
right. Well, because I don't personally like just jumping into a workout either. I know sometimes we are tight on time or we're limited, but I always have to start with something because there is no way I can just jump right into a Chris Freytag HIIT workout. It's just not, just not good for my body. So I would always add a few extra.
And we get smarter. I mean,
Yes.
fitness has changed. When I started teaching 30 years ago, the first thing we did was this. You know, we just started doing jumping jacks like crazy. Then exercise physiology, moves along and people teach you, and I've been doing continuing education for 30 years, and they're like, okay, you need to warm up the joints to prevent your own injuries and your participants' injuries. You need to get the heart rate up slowly and don't come out of the gates so fast. So you learn these things and you go, okay, the more you know, the better you do, right?
Yeah. All right, we've got like 3 minutes left.
How could that be? Okay, let's go.
Side planks are her nemesis. Tend to feel more the shoulder than the abs. How do you engage the abs in a side plank?
Okay, abs, again, so much of strength training is making sure that your brain is in the muscle group you're training. I always tell people, I tell you the muscle group you're training so you're aware of it. If you're just going like this and you have no idea what muscle you're using, you're not going to be as thoughtful about it. So when you know that planks are engaging the abs, you know that you should really focus on that. When you come into the shoulder, I prefer a forearm plank over a full plank because that's just so hard on my wrist and on my shoulder. But when you lift up, make sure that you don't do this. Look at my neck. Versus here. Strong. You got to be strong. Don't sink down here. And then I put my mind here so I can really focus on my abdominals. You can come to a full plank, but again, you have to decide how does that feel on your wrist, how does that feel on your shoulder. But it's keeping it out of your neck. So instead of here, strong right there.
We have Jennifer Cowan saying, we have ladies blessed with big old booties and wide hips. Think pear-shaped bodies. Have a sway back when laying on the ground. It can be painful. Ideas, training, or modification support that area.
We have a new Pilates workout coming out for premium members in the next couple months. Going to be led by Kate. It's going to be awesome, and I'm going to talk to Kate about really cueing and teaching people to remind her about what we call a Pilates Imprint. So when you lay down on the ground, it is absolutely normal to have a C-curve in your low back. I've got a microphone here, so I'll turn this way so you can kind of see my C-curve. That is quite normal to have, where you can kind of slide your hand under your back. And then if you, like you said, if you feel like you've got a little bit more of a sway back, it's even more pronounced. So what you want to think is what we call an imprint. It's like imagining if you were on the sand, you want to imprint those 5 vertebrae into the sand. Make an imprint so that when you stand up, you see where those vertebrae were. So you take your belly and you pull it down and you move your hip bones closer to your rib cage, and it's called an imprint. In Pilates, when you first start your Pilates training, you just work on only imprinting. And then you hold your imprint and you take one foot off, and then you take the other foot, and then you bring one foot down, and then you bring the other. And so you go through this whole series of being able to hold your imprint. Then once you can hold your imprint, you lift up through that thoracic spine. Pilates is a method. It is so freaking awesome. I'm going to encourage all of you, when we get this premium Pilates workout up, do it. It is unbelievable for your body. And we have some really good gold Pilates already.
Absolutely. 2 o'clock on the dot.
Okay, do we have one more or are we done?
I think that we'll talk about the free fitness challenges.
Okay, let's do that.
That's about it.
So you guys, I know this was so much going on. I didn't even have time to talk about our free fitness challenges. I wanted to mention, if you are a member, you can still do our free fitness challenges. If you are not a member, you heard the word free. We have a whole area on the website. You go to gethealthyutv.com and then you click on, let's tell them exactly.
Free fitness browse, and then free fitness challenges, and they're all right there.
It doesn't get easier than that. We have a 60-day start. We have a Shake Up Your Wake Up if you're looking to get started with exercise in the morning or just having a better morning routine. We have a reboot program. We have a Stronger Together. We have a 14-day meditation if you're needing some stress relief. It is 14 full days going from about 5 minutes to 15 minutes of meditation, which is awesome. We have 10 minutes for 10 days, which is a really good one. Like, let's say you're going to go on vacation or something. That would be a good one to take. So check them all out. They are free. Sam and I were just talking. We're going to add to those challenges coming up here too.
Yep. There's so many more things that we could cover, but each month we'll cover them.
I'm just so proud of those of you who took the time to come and listen to this, because form is so important. And as we age, we want to make sure that we're doing the best that we can with the best form that we can.
Yep.
But give yourself grace. Understand that, you know, everybody's body is different, and just work towards these things. Feel accomplished. That's, to me, progress is.
Progress, not perfection.
Look at her. She's got it.
I'm
Okay.
learning.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. We'll be back to you next month. And as always, we appreciate your support, and we love working out with you.